We are live here at the UGA bookstore. My name is Brandon Adams. It's our DawgNation post-game coverage. What happened a moment ago at G-Day. I'm also very happy today to be joined by the former Georgia linebacker, Natrez Patrick. Natrez, thanks so much for being here with us today. We appreciate your insight on everything that you saw today and everything that you got going on. It's great to have you here on DawgNation today.
Definitely. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And it's great to be back between the hedges, man. It's been a while.
So we were talking a little bit before the show started. I'm going to have to correct you on one thing. You said it was a little cool before the game began. I don't know that cool is the word that I would use. I think before this game kicked off today, it was downright cold there for a minute. It was pouring down rain. And, you know, even still, with kind of bad weather at kickoff, we still got a lot of fans in the stadium today. I thought I never heard the official announcement. Maybe Connor, maybe you did. But to me, it looked like there had to be close to 40,000 or so in there. So a lot of UGA fans did a pretty good job of kind of braving what was, at least at kickoff, some pretty bad weather.
That's amazing, man. And that's just to give the kudos to our fans in DawgNation. They show up, whether it's a spring game. Most people say, well, this game doesn't really matter, but DawgNation wants to see the preview of what's next, what's to come in the years to come. So big ups to DawgNation.
Well, you know, I've been a fan my whole life. You know, I'm not like you who's a player, but I mean, I'm a fan. And the one thing I'll say from the perspective of a fan, in April, this is as close as we get, right? I mean, I'd love for it to be like November and playing Auburn today or October and playing Tennessee, but Georgia doesn't get to do that until come fall.
Exactly.
So in April, this is as close as we get. So we'll treat it like a real football game, even if it not quite is, you know?
Right.
All right, so it's Natrez Patrick here. We're going to be taking a lot of your comments on Facebook and YouTube. I'll also remind you, all the folks stop by to see us here at the UGA bookstore. We appreciate that as well. And if you've never been to the UGA bookstore after a game, this is a place that you want to come because down there on the first floor, we're up on the second floor. If you're still around campus, you want to come by and say hello, we'll be here for a while, give you a chance to do that. But down there on the first floor, all those great, you know, famous makers that do the UGA stuff, the Nike, the Vineyard Vines, the 47 brand, the Tommy Bahama, the Southern Tide, the Peter Millar. Boy, you want to talk about a great selection of that, and they're open right now. So if you need something to kind of go into the spring and summer, some UGA gear, the UGA bookstore is a great place to go for that. We're getting a lot of comments, as I said. But, Natrez, let me start with one thing before we get there. You know, one of the things that Georgia fans were a little bit disappointed in today is a guy they were looking forward to seeing, Demetrius Robertson, does not play. Now, Kirby Smart on the radio broadcast, I guess, the TV broadcast, we're hearing some accounts that he said Robertson got sick last night. You know, this is a guy that you played with a year ago, but for a lot of Georgia fans, there's this great curiosity because, let's face it, sometimes when you go from the Pac-12, where Robertson was at Cal, to Georgia, where he in the SEC, where he is now, there's a transition involved in that. You have to learn a new offense. You have to learn the new expectations. And, boy, we've heard some good things about what Robertson has done this spring, and a lot of fans were looking forward to seeing him. Sounds like an illness keeps him out of this game today. For a lot of Georgia fans, that's a little bit disappointing. I guess I'd be curious to know, what have you seen from D-Rob in practice when you were going up against him last year? And I'm sure you probably understand why a lot of UGA fans are hoping to see him today.
Definitely. So like you said, it was a bit of a transition from coming from Pac-12 to SEC. And the biggest transition is probably physicality. But that's one thing he's bought into, like blocking in practice and things like that, where he's showing toughness and things of that nature. Like he's bought in full-fledged, and I think everybody already knows that he can take the roof off and run past anybody he's against. So I think I'm expecting great things from him this year, man. It's an unfortunate illness, what's happened to him. I hope he gets better soon, but I'm really looking forward to him.
Do you know anything about the illness that he's dealing with or anything?
I don't.
But it is unfortunate that keeps him out of G-Day, and I love what you said there, the fact that he's bought in completely because, you know, let's face it, when you are a guy, and Natrez, you deal with this kind of stuff as a player too, because when you're competing against guys who are really, really talented, if you're not getting the playing time that you think that you deserve, it could be easy to maybe get a little bit, I don't know what, you know, upset, disappointed about that. And yet it seems like D-Rob came back here for 2019 more determined than ever to prove that he belongs in the field. And I do think that speaks well of him as a player.
Definitely. And that's always, if you're a good player and you want to be on the field, you're going to have that drive to actually want to be out there more, or however much you want to be out there. So that just speaks to his competitive edge and the type of player he is. So big ups to him. I wish him the best. I really think he's going to do really well this year. And it's competition. That's what drives a football team. That's what makes a team good is competition. And iron sharpens iron.
Sure does.
Definitely.
The other thing we heard about D-Rob a little bit during the spring was, and Kirby told us this from time to time, you mentioned before, this is a guy that takes the top off of defense because he runs so fast. We've also heard of him playing some on the inside in that slot position, and I'm gathering, just given the fact that Tyler Simmons and J.J. Holloman were both on the red team today, that had D-Rob played, he would have played where Kearis Jackson ended up playing. That's also an interesting spot for D-Rob to be, given the fact that you might think because he's got that sort of track star speed, he may be playing on the outside. Right. But it sounds like he also potentially has a home as that slot receiver a bit, too.
Because, man, that slot position creates so many disadvantages and mixed matches on backers and safeties, bigger safeties or anything like that. So him being there, I love it, man. He'll blow right past him. Before
we get to the comments, you mentioned that slot position. As a linebacker yourself, you mentioned what the slot receiver forces you guys to think about. What do you make of a big slot receiver like Kearis? Because Kearis got a little extra weight on him. He's a pretty big guy. I imagine as a linebacker, when you look over and see number 10 over there, he looks a little different than some of those skinny guys you see on some of these teams, does he not?
Definitely. So the way Georgia runs his offense is different components. We have slot receivers that kind of run past you and do routes, but I also like to do jet sweeps and things on the outside of that nature. So a bigger body that likes to get in and get his nose dirty and block and things of that such like he is to bring to the table. It just shows the versatility that Georgia has and can switch it up.
All right, let me run through a few of these comments here on Facebook and YouTube. It's Nate Patrick here. My name's Brandon Adams. It's great to have you as a part of our DawgNation post-game show as we look in on G-Day and what happened today. Steve Grogan says that Dwan Mathis was looking good. And, this is one of the fun things about G-Day, Nate Trez, when you see guys you haven't seen before. Now, I've seen a little bit of Dwan at practice for most fans. This was their first chance to see him, and he does bring a pretty interesting athletic skill set to the table, does he not?
Definitely. Today was actually my first time seeing him. And just his versatility, man, the way he was running outside of the pocket, it was scary. It was scary if it wasn't two-hand touch for the quarterbacks, exactly how many yards he would have gotten. So, and I've seen him throw a good deep ball. Like he was throwing a couple good deep balls out there that I've seen today. So I'm excited, man. I can't wait to see what's in store for the kid.
Well, when you're a tall guy who can run, that's such an interesting skill set. When you put that big arm to go along with it, you think, boy, all of a sudden, this guy looks like a lot of the guys you see doing very well at this level.
The sky's the limit for that kid.
Graham Jones in our Facebook comment section says, you know this defense really well. Which of these position groups do you think is the farthest along right now?
To be honest, I feel like the most depth is probably like in the secondary, man. From the second level on back to the backers, it's a really experienced backer group. And Tay Crowder and Monty Rice and guys like that, those guys have played a lot of football. And the young pups coming up, Nate McBride and Quay Walker and the Kobe Dean, guys who's been sticking their nose out. In the secondary, of course, you got Richard LeCount and you got J.R. Reed and you got guys that just played a lot of football because nowadays, man, young kids are playing. Freshmen and sophomores are playing on the field. So that doesn't really determine it. It determines about how much football you played. So, man, these games means maturity. So I'm excited to see what this secondary is going to bring, and I can't wait.
Crow King 123 on YouTube says that he agrees those defensive backs look good. And it also kind of goes on to a couple years ago, we had an event. And this was after Roquan Smith and Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter left school, and Sonny Michel was there too. And Davin Bellamy starts telling a story about how one day in practice, I think it was he and Sonny almost got into a fight because Sonny thought the defense was playing the play. I mean, when you play the same team every single day, at a certain point in time, you start figuring out tendencies a little bit. And today, at times, with the defensive secondary, it was a little hard to tell, okay, so are they just doing that well, jumping these routes, or have they just practiced against the same team for the last few weeks? As a guy who kind of knows the inner workings of that, do you notice the same thing a little bit?
Oh, definitely. I mean, going up and coming from fall camp to spring to everything, you pick up on certain calls and certain things. You know, this means right, this means left. So it's kind of something that you kind of pick up on. But
it's almost impossible not to use it to your advantage. It's like you can't unknow the things that you know. Of course.
That's just like looking at film. When you see a certain position or a certain set, you know what play is coming. You use this to your advantage. It's football, man. I tell those offensive guys to get over it.
But the one thing that Kirby has also said, though, to back up the idea that the secondary is playing well right now is, a couple times he's alluded to, I can't tell, because he's trying to evaluate his wide receivers, too, and that's always part of the challenge of the spring, is you got to say, okay, if something happens, was this a good play by the offense or bad play by the defense, or was this a good play by the defense, bad play by the offense? But he says, I can't tell if our secondary is just doing this well or if our wide receivers are still kind of a work in progress. So we've read between the lines on a couple of things that Kirby said thus far this spring, and it certainly seems that as of right now, he's pretty happy with the way that secondary is playing too, which speaks to how well they're replacing DeAndre Baker. And that's not an easy thing to do because Baker, definitely. He had to have that field locked down last year.
Right.
All right, let's get a few more comments. It's our DawgNation postgame show. We're live here at the UGA bookstore. We'd love to have you stop by and see us, whether you get a chance to, or for those of you just checking in on video, appreciate that. But if you do come by here, don't forget, lots of great stuff, UGA apparel down there on the first floor, the Nike, the 47 brand, the Vineyard Vines, the Southern Tide. Boy, it is a huge collection of great UGA apparel, and you can find it all right down there at the UGA bookstore. And don't forget to please continue to check out DawgNation.com for all the reactions, the coverage of everything that happens here at G-Day. We are also, I got some space here to my right. We're also going to hopefully catch up with our buddy Jeff Sintel here a bit too. Jeff's still in the stadium, taking care of some business, monitoring the stuff with UGA recruiting, but we hope to catch up with Jeff and be a part of this here as well as this conversation rolls on. Let's see what else is going on here in the YouTube comment section. George says we should play again in the playoffs. That would be exciting. And, Nate Trez, you were part of this in 2017. You saw the way this team came together to win that SEC championship, and now that really has, to a certain extent, become the expectation for this program moving forward. And I guess it'd be interesting to hear from you the transition that you observed, going to be the kind of thing that Georgia dreamed of to now having achieved and now thinking it can get back there again in 2019. What's it been like watching that all come to pass from where you have been as a player?
Man, it's amazing. Just being a part of the entire process from when we went 8-4 and then we come back and win the SEC championship and have a season like that, man, just to be a part of something that is really a culture change. Like, it really was a culture change, and not just from Smart coming over to the team buying in. Like, we created our own language. We motivated each other. We cut down on negative language, because language is so much, man. The way each other feed off each other's energy is so important when it comes to a team sport like football, and that was big, man. We had a lot of positive energy. We created a language, keep chopping. Everything that we did, and it showed.
One of the things that Kirby's told us is that he wants that coming from the players, not just coach to player, but he wants players saying that to each other. How important was that part of the process for you guys? And I'm sure it still continues today, of not just coaches leading players, but players leading players.
Oh, my God. And obviously that year, man, we had some of the best leaders I've ever been around, in Lorenzo Carter and Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, Isaiah Wynn. Like, just so those guys, man, were excellent leaders, and you didn't mind following. You didn't mind following those guys.
Let me get a few more comments here. Brad Smith in the Facebook comment section talking about Stetson Bennett. Now, here's one of those things that I'll admit that as a guy kind of on the outside of the program looking in, it can be a little bit perplexing sometimes. A lot of you guys really became very impressed with Stetson Bennett.
The mailman.
See, I'm telling you, a lot of these players, Stetson earned a lot of respect. What is it behind the scenes? Now, we saw it for ourselves today, and I thought Stetson had some good moments. But what is it behind the scenes that has earned so much credibility for Stetson?
Man, he's a great person, man. He's a great person, and he's so smooth, and the way he comes to work and the way he is off the field, how helping and attentive and caring he is, man. He's a great person, man. That's what makes it so easy to root for Stetson. I'm excited for him. I'm happy to have him back with DawgNation and on our team. I'd rather have him with me than against me. I sure know that.
And it's important, too, as impressive as Dwan Mathis was, and Mathis had some really good moments today, but let's face it, when you don't have that experience, when you haven't played in the SEC before, if Jake were to get hurt, you want a guy that knows the offense, that has, now Stetson hasn't really played, games, but he's been a part of practice and done all that. That little bit of experience would be really important in the event that Georgia needed it.
Definitely.
Over here on the comment section, Brett Oglesby says that James Cook looked like he put on some great weight and some great muscle. What did you think about James Cook today?
I seen him. He actually, right before I came up here, I sat and talked to him on the locker room, and I actually just said, I say, man, you like your brother. You really look like your brother now. He changed his number to 4, and his lower body is thicker. He looks like he's put on weight, so he looks good, man.
He's another one of those guys that had to show a little patience because the running back position may be as hard as any at Georgia to really crack that lineup in because, I mean, last year Elijah Holyfield's 1,000 yards.
Right.
DeAndre Swift, 1,000 yards plus. Cracking Harrigan's, in line to get his carries. You got to wait your turn to kind of get that going. I would imagine at time that had to be a little hard for him to show that patience, right?
Oh, my God. But I just feel like that speaks to him as a player, as to being able to sit and wait his turn and just take what's coming to him because, I mean, the way those guys rotate is ridiculous. Coming from a defensive perspective as a linebacker, you keep seeing DeAndre Swift and Brian Herring and then James Cook. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
Well, especially in that 2017 team, because that to me always seems like the template for what they want to establish with that 3-headed pecking order. Because in 2017, Sony gets his 1,000, Chubb gets his 1,000, but then you got Swift as a freshman who comes in as this complete change of pace. All of a sudden, he's the fastest maybe of the entire 3, and he's coming in later in the game. Can you imagine this year if Zamir is back and healthy, and we certainly hope that he's on his way to doing that? Obviously, Harrigan's in line. I think he could have a 1,000-yard season. DeAndre's still what he is. I mean, can you imagine bringing in a James Cook late in the game when linebackers are tired and he's fully healthy? I mean, that's a load to deal with.
Mind-blowing, man.
That's a load to deal with.
Mind-blowing.
Brent Smith says Harrigan will definitely be drafted next year, and I believe that too. Natures, I don't know how well you remember this, but go back to that first game Harrigan played against North Carolina
touchdown.
back in 2016. Yeah, touchdown.
First carry.
Like, this is a guy, and you got to understand something. Like, I follow this stuff closely. I recruiting, I pay attention, to you guys before you get to Georgia. Harrigan was not a guy I knew that much about, and so it was a little bit weird to have a running back coming into Georgia who I just didn't really know that much about. He was a little bit of an unknown commodity coming out of high school. We knew way more about Elijah Holyfield, for instance. He's got the famous last name, and he was a recruitment land and all that kind of stuff. But then Harrigan plays because Holyfield was a little bit banged up at the beginning of that season. And you're right, touchdown. I mean, he looked like he could play this position at the SEC level from the get-go. So 2019 may be the year that he really gets a chance to show that.
Oh, definitely. And I've kind of actually always known about him. He being from Georgia and coming from New Manchester, and seeing him that first spring when he first got there. And he was just a gem, man. And you could know he ran the ball so hard. He came in with that thick lower body, hard to tackle, hard to bring down, hard in space to tackle. And he's a stud, man. Point blank, he's a stud.
I would agree with you on that. Ryan Patrick Presley talking about one of the areas of concern, maybe that tight end position. We saw Charlie Warner get some catches today, but that competition to be that second tight end, and Georgia likes that second guy on the field a lot, that's still ongoing. Eli Wolf is going to be here in the summer. Brett Seither's going to be here in the summer. That's one of the recruits, obviously, they just signed. Rylan Godey on campus now, but he'll be hopefully healthy to practice this summer. But that competition to be that number 2 tight end, that is going to be one of the big stories of this summer, I would think.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, competition will ramp up. Guys will step up. There's still a lot more football to be played before the first game. So I feel like those guys will be fine.
Let me let you remind you what we're doing here and then invite you to come on by and see us. That is Nate Patrick. What a thrill it is to talk a little Georgia football with him here today as part of our DawgNation postgame show. Good to have you with us. We'll be here taking your comments and chatting about what happened during G-Day. And if you get a chance to stop on by, something else you'll see is some terrific apparel from the UGA bookstore. I'm talking about the best brands of them all, like Nike and Tommy Bahama and Southern Tide and all that. That's down on the first floor. We're up here on the second floor. We'd love to have you come on by. Also, hopefully before we're done, Jeff Sindell stop by and see us too. That's DawgNation's recruiting insider. He was paying very close attention to what was a huge collection of recruits on campus today. It's kind of funny, you hear from a lot of the Dog fans around here and they'll say, I saw this recruiter, I saw that recruit, and they'll talk about how big of a smile they have on their face and how much fun they're having. And Nate Trez, I'm sure you get this for a lot of the fans. That is the fun part of this too, because there were a lot of recruits in the building today. That West End Zone thing now is so nice for hosting all these guys, and it's kind of cool seeing all of them have such a good time when they come by.
Oh, definitely, man. Just seeing the atmosphere that DawgNation has to welcome them in, and just seeing how happy they is when they come and how they enjoy the game, man. It's amazing, man. And I just want to keep reloading keep reloading, keep getting these guys in.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Chevron Hannah says, how did Nolan Smith do? So I watched Nolan some at the very beginning of the game, and it's kind of cool to see he and Jermaine Johnson, two guys that just got here. Now, I'm not going to try to read too much into this because sometimes this can be a little misleading, but the black team is supposed to be the first-team defense. And, I saw at the very beginning of the game, Jermaine and Nolan were both lined up at those outside linebacker positions. Let me tell you something. You want to talk about something that's fun to do? Watch Nolan. One time he lined up on the right side, one time he lined on the left side. He and Jermaine Johnson going to flip-flop. Watch him try to do a one-on-one with Isaiah Wilson. Then go over there and try to do a one-on-one with Andrew Thomas. Because to me, and you can speak to this as well, Thomas and Wilson are about as good as it gets when it comes to the offensive tackles.
By far.
Nolan's a young guy, but he's got that speed. He's got those instincts. And, watching him try to put some pass, rush moves on and watching those guys use those long arms, that size to their advantage, that's one of those things for a lot of us when we get home. We might go back and rewatch this game on television. But going back and seeing that battle is a fun thing to see because no doubt some of these young guys, Nakobe Dean was playing some of the inside linebacker position too. A lot of these young guys, they bring a pretty interesting skill set to the table.
Oh, definitely. Some young guys come in more ready than others. Some comes and learn faster than others. So some guys just come and ready to jump off the porch right now, man. And he's one of those guys. I've been hearing a lot about him in the spring. And overall, a lot of people kind of look at the overall game and don't really look at the individual matchups.
Yeah.
Man, just some of the things he do, technically sound, and he's just way far along. It doesn't seem like he's a freshman.
Well, here's one of the things that, as a fan, and obviously on my show, we talk to fans every single day. So as a fan, sometimes you got to be careful not to get too excited about some of these guys, what they might be able to do. But you will admit that, Kirby's tendency would be to talk some of these guys down, right? Because they come in, from high school. They've been former 5-stars. You'd think that Kirby'd want to be like, kind of deflating that ego, a little de-recruiting. But we've heard even some good things from him about Nolan, which leads you to believe that I'm not going to tell you he's going to be, all-American, light the world on fire, but in terms of maybe being ready to be a contributor, he, Nakobe, Jermaine Johnson, a lot of those newcomers may have a chance to do that.
Yeah, I agree, because if anybody's going to tell you like it is, Coach Smart is going to tell you like it is. So
for sure.
I don't think he's going to cut any corners.
So before we get back to our comments, I'm going to talk some more about everything that's going on here. I guess I'm curious. I know you were talking about me about this a little bit before the show started. What was it like being back today? Was it a little weird not, being on the field? Not, we're used to seeing you in that uniform with a lot of those same guys that were out there today. How weird is it for you to kind of be in the sort of the alumnus role now, the ex-player role? What's that like?
So like I was saying before, I was with Jawan Taylor, my co-backer, and it's just so different, man. Just going to the games, thinking about where we're going to park.
Yeah.
We're usually used to riding the buses over to the stadium.
Right.
Where do we park?
That parking's no joke, by the way, right?
Oh, my God. How do we get into the stadium? How do we, it's so many things I didn't know just being on the other side of the spectrum, man. But it's amazing. I feel like a fan. I've always wanted to experience the games from the stands and see what's going on. So it was an amazing experience, man. I can't tell you how great it feels to be a Georgia fan now.
That's really good. And, I was telling you this also before the show started today, that one of the things I always get a big kick out of is when you watch the guys come back, and I think that Georgia does a really good job of this now, where you have, the guys calling the dogs, and they'll bring, a lot of the ex-players out on the field during, quarter breaks and halftime, things like that. It always looks like they're having such a good time. And it seems like, UGA does a good job of making all of you guys feel at home when you do come back. Because, I think it does look really good to see a whole long line and a long list of, I remember when he played, And to see those guys, including yourself, still feeling that level of support for the program, that's just a good look to have alumni back on campus.
And that's something that Kirby really, really, really cares about. So right before Pro Day, interesting story, right before Pro Day, Kirby comes in and he has a meeting with all the guys, and he just talks about, he says, I wish we could have accomplished our goals, but that's not, everything doesn't happen the way you want it to. Life goes on. I wish all of you the best, but you're always a dog. So never hesitate to call. Never hesitate to ask for help. Never feel like you have too much pride to not want help. Because you're always a dog, and we're always going to open you back here with open arms.
Well, let me take a moment to say this then, because I think that's a really good story, and I'm glad to hear Coach Smart say that to you guys. Here's the one thing that I would hope that you guys from the 2018 team will one day appreciate, that this is going to be a long-term story, I believe, for Kirby at Georgia, right? And there are going to be many championships, or certainly they have a chance to happen in the years to come, but I don't think they will happen without the foundation that's been laid over the last couple of years. An SEC championship in 2017, an appearance in the college football playoff, back-to-back, winnings of the SEC East, getting to the Sugar Bowl this year. First time Georgia had been to major bowls 2 years in a row since the early 80s. I don't think you get to that point in the future without what you guys do now. So I hope when that national championship does come, and I mean this in all sincerity, I hope when that championship does come that you guys that were on this 2018 team, that were part of the 2017 team as well, I hope you'll feel a sense of ownership of that, because foundations are important, and what you guys did in 2018 and did in 2017, that's the foundation for getting there.
Well,
and really even 2016 too, really, for the most part.
Definitely. Well, I really appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. It has to start somewhere, and I'm just glad to be a part of the other team that was able to start it.
All right, let me get some stats here, and we'll get back to your comments. So if you're curious, I haven't given the final score yet, because the truth is I just now figured it out. It was the red team winning today, 22-17 over the black team. Let's take a look at some of the stats and see how things go down for Georgia at G-Day. Well, this is going to take forever to scroll through. Let's see if we can find some stats to give out here. So it looks like DeAndre Swift goes 3 carries for 39 yards. Jake Fromm goes 14 for 29 for 116 yards. Also has a touchdown. Charlie Warner gets 5 catches for 44 yards. That leads the red team. How about Trey Blunt today? Gets 5 catches for 69 yards, including a couple there in the first half. Trey's an example of one of these guys that's kind of looking to be on the field a lot more. Played a good bit in 2017. Probably didn't play as much last year. But 5 catches today is certainly a step in the right direction for Trey.
Yeah, man, and it was tough catches as well, like heavily guarded, strong, straight hands catches that were really tough grabs. So
we did an event with Trey before he enrolled at Georgia. This is back when he was still a recruit, and he went to Pace Academy, same school that Andrew Thomas and Jabari Salyer went to. And Trey was talking about how he knew that, he says, and I loved his phrase, that you got to block to get the rock. So, he knew that he needed to be a physical receiver going back to before he came to Georgia. And that's kind of when that mentality was first kind of coming to pass at UGA. But Trey was already about that. That's one of the reasons why I think a lot of folks like myself kind of root for Trey to get, hopefully, an opportunity to be on the field. And that's a tough competition, because Georgia's going to be very deep at wide receiver, especially when new guys are added this summer. One of the reasons why a guy like me roots for Trey is because he seemingly always had that right attitude. It's just a matter of, putting together and earning that spot and winning that competition. But from an attitude standpoint, he's got what it takes.
Oh, definitely. And I'm always rooting for Trey Blunt and guys that like Trey, who comes in every day to work with his head low, and he just grinds it out. And he does anything the coaches ask of him. And I'm rooting for him.
Chad Dewberry says Natrez is doing his thing. Keep bringing him back for his insight. So obviously, you got NFL aspirations. You're working hard to get ready for that. But you are doing a great job on the show. Do you give any thought to that sort of life after football thing? I mean, I'll admit one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show today was because when we had done interviews together in the past, I always thought you were really insightful, had a lot of interesting things to say. I mean, is a broadcast thing something that you would like to do? Is that something that you have any interest sort of beyond the NFL and beyond that next level?
To be honest, I don't really mind being behind the camera. I don't mind being in front of the camera. If we're being quite frank. But honestly, so my major was mass comm.
Yeah.
So I've always been in communications. I've always loved to talk to people and interact, and I've always been a people person and things like that. So I don't mind, man. I don't mind being in front of the camera.
Well, it's one of those things too. It's like, we all love talking about football, but there is something extra that really is gained from a guy that, on that field with this team, with these players. I mean, that insight's going to always be a commodity, because there is a certain level of knowledge that you only get from being behind those closed doors.
Definitely.
A few more comments. Some folks want to talk here. Let me go over to the Facebook comment section. Fred asking about Otis Reese. Yeah, I'll have to go back and see the replay. I know at one point in time, Otis was kind of lined up a little bit different than a safety. He was almost like kind of lined up, almost like an extra linebacker a couple of times. So that'll be interesting to kind of look in and see with him a little bit later on. Mark Godfrey, the subject of Mark Webb. He says he's going to be the next Bakari Rambo. Yeah, Webb's another one of those guys, a little bit like, he's almost like the defensive version of Trey Blunt. Now, Webb's played a pretty good bit. But in terms of, that competition, I guess it's he and Devad Wilson and William Poole for that star position. Webb's a tough guy, and he's shown that over the last couple of years. But I know he'd like to find more playing time. And it sounds like from what Kirby said, he'd also like to find that home for Webb as more than just kind of a third down defensive back, but somebody that can, be on the field a lot more often.
I mean, because when you bring the type of intensity and demeanor that Mark brings to the game, man, you have to find a place for him somewhere out there on the field. So he's definitely one of those guys, man, that you love his physical toughness and everything that he's about and what he does, and you got to find a place for him.
Barry Watkins asked about Zamir White, and I saw Zamir come through the dog walk today, and this is obviously a very impressive physical specimen. And I talk to Georgia fans every day, Nate Trez. I don't know that any player gets fans more excited right now than Zamir, because we really haven't seen him at the college level yet. And, we've been, teased with the possibility, but it hasn't happened yet. We've heard some positive reports about how his injury recovery is going, but what do you think it's going to really be like once Zamir's playing again? Or do you really get a sense that because the fact is, I guess you really haven't even seen him practice very much.
Well, but I have. So let me tell you, the spring, right before he got injured. So he was practicing. I think he got injured in the end of his first spring, towards the end of his first spring. And when I tell you, he ripped us apart.
Really?
Literally, so hard to tackle. No one could tackle him one-on-one, because he actually did a couple scrimmages. I think he did the first scrimmage, maybe the second scrimmage.
Yeah, this would have been in August.
Of course, yeah. And we could not tackle him. He couldn't bring him down, and he ran really tough. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do to people in the opposite color jersey. So I can't wait, man. I'm glad his recovery is going well.
Yeah.
I hope that he'll be back soon.
Do you get a sense, because when we saw Chubb get hurt in 2015, so he comes back in 2016, and he was, I think, much healthier in 2017 than he had been in 2016, but his injury that he suffered, I think, is way more serious than what Zamir's coming back from now. But Zamir also had the high school injury before that. So he's had both ACLs over the last 2 years, but neither of them were probably as serious as the one that Chubb suffered in 2015. I don't know. You're obviously not a doctor, but you get a sense for, how easy it is for a running back to kind of come back from what you think Zamir might be dealing with?
Oh, definitely. And it definitely depends on the type of person you is. Zamir really seemed unfazed, to be honest. Obviously, he wished he could be out there and playing with us, and we all wish that he could be playing with us, but he really seemed unfazed. He's a guy that he's mentally strong, so it doesn't really bother him. I think he'll be all right.
We had a good conversation on our show the other day. Robert Edwards, who was Terrence Edwards' brother, terrific former Georgia running back, and he said, because Robert had been a first-round pick of the Patriots and back in the 90s, and he suffered a bad injury, ended his career, and so he obviously understands the situation with the injuries. And Robert had talked to Zamir and kind of talked him up, and he said that he is in good spirits right now. And obviously, when you see him on social media, he's obviously chomping the bit to kind of get back out there. Let me also kind of keep it real about one thing just for a second too, because some of the fans are a little disappointed. Drew Roman, for instance, on our Facebook comment section brings this up, that maybe that first team offense today wasn't quite clicking as well as you hoped it would be. Could you talk to us about this just for a second? Because on the one hand, you're not going to give DeAndre Swift 1 million carries in a game like this, because you don't, you don't want to use up him against his own teammates. But at the same time, it probably wasn't a super crisp day for the first team offense. From a defensive guy's perspective, what do you make of that?
So first of all, let me just start off by saying that in the spring game, you really on a preview about 5, maybe 6 plays.
Yeah.
So it's really the same plays over and over again. But coaches just basically emphasize on doing the little things better. They want the plan to be as small as possible to see guys go out and play as fast as they can so they can make mistakes and they can really be evaluated. So, I definitely would speak on the spring game, but at the same time, it's not nearly as what you'll be seeing during the season. As we know, Georgia's going to ground you, they're going to pound you, and then they're going to go over top. Like you said, it's probably most 15 carries, 20 carries out of the whole entire game. So, it's still a lot of football to be played before the first game. Like I said, it's still a lot of preparation. I think those guys will be great. I like what I've seen.
Timothy Bennett wants to talk about Matt Landers. We'll do that in just a moment. Before I get to that, though, what did you make of what you saw from Jake Fromm today?
It was a pretty good day. Like I said, it was simple. He was trying to keep it simple. And like I said, it's pretty much the same play, so you can't really evaluate too much, honestly.
Yeah.
The defense kind of have a tip on you and things like that. So
Jill Cobb-Burke in our Facebook comment section says, great perspective from Natrez Patrick. So a lot of folks are liking what Natrez is bringing to the table. Matt Rugavina says Natrez is telling the truth. So that's always nice to hear. So we saw today a lot of what Kirby Smart says about Matt Landers, that there are a lot of exciting moments, and they obviously targeted Landers a pretty good bit. Also a couple moments today where he had a chance to haul in passes, wasn't quite able to get that done. But you certainly see why, and he's another guy a little bit like Stetson, who from practices, a lot of players kind of rave about Landers as a receiver, including there was a moment back at the combine when Riley Ridley, McCole Hardman, and all talking about who they thought might break out this year, and Landers got a mention, from all three of those guys, from Terry Godwin as well. So you kind of got a glimpse of that. This is a guy that can use his body, use his speed to get open, and then just doing the little things like hauling in those catches. One thing that he's still kind of working on a little bit.
Definitely. And when you see somebody with that size and that speed, obviously you're expecting really great things. As I am from Matt. I think it's a process.
Yeah.
I think he's a great guy, man. He's coming along. He's made so many great mass strides since the day he first came in, and I'm excited for him. I can't wait.
Santiago Diarn says, thank you, Natrez, for your insights, DGD. There's no doubt about that. Also, Sean Wilkins is wanting to know about your draft process. Before we're done, do you mind if we talk about that a little bit? Just kind of what you got going on? So we'll do that coming up in just a moment. Let me get a few more comments before we go. Let me pop back over to YouTube. We haven't been to YouTube here in a moment. Georgia Peach on that idea of havoc, and we talked about that when you're on DawgNation Daily on Thursday, that one of the things that Kirby's clearly said is, and a lot of the Georgia players said this too, including, Jonathan Ledbetter even kind of talked about this at Pro Day, which you were part of, that, they want more sacks. They want, more tackles for loss. Ledbetter even had a funny line of like, I'm a little bit mad that they're, he said this joking, he wasn't being serious, but he's like, I'm a little bit mad they're bringing this out now. I wish we'd have pushed this more a little bit a year ago. Definitely. I imagine you probably feel the same way a little bit, right?
Oh, definitely. Obviously, you want those negative plays, but our coaches kind of stood on the fact of we want to be able to play our base defense as well. We want to be able to call out base defense at any time in the game and be able to compete with any offense, and that's what we stood on. I'm all for the negative plays. I'm with John on that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's amazing. I seen a few more blitzes today and things.
But you brought up a good point, though, and I think this is really, really important. Is that you want to be able to do some of those negative plays from a base defense,
definitely,
right?
Definitely.
So it's like, okay, it's great to go get a blitz, and obviously every now and then you got to dial that up. That's just an important part of football. Keeping the offense guessing. But if you're constantly doing that,
right,
then for a lot of new guys in secondary with no DeAndre Baker back there,
you're vulnerable.
That makes you much more vulnerable back there,
right? Definitely. And Coach Tucker always said, if we have to send blitzes to stop certain plays, that's not good.
Yeah.
So base defense is where it's at.
How proud are you to see him as a head coach now at Colorado?
Oh, my God. I'm astounded. I'm so proud for Coach. I know that those players are going to love playing for him, and he's a great coach, man. Players coach. They're going to love him up there in Colorado. I can't wait to see him.
Yeah, that's really good to see. Let's get a few more comments here. James Crump talking about two of the receivers coming in the summertime, George Pickens and Dominic Blaylock. By the way, always one of my favorite moments at G-Day when those recruits get a chance to come out and be honored. At halftime, another great signing class honored today. That's really good. And for those receivers, Dominic Blaylock, a kid out of Atlanta, George Pickens, a young man out of Alabama, they are coming here in the summer. Lawrence Cager's a Miami transfer. He's going to be here as well. And I know wide receiver is not your position, but how quickly can those guys step in here and pick that up? Kirby said that the day they're going to look at Blaylock as a possible punt returner. They think he can play all three of those receiver positions, and Pickens is a terrific athlete in his own right. How hard or easy, or manageable is it as a incoming freshman to kind of step in and try to learn that position through really just a few summer practices, not having the opportunity to be here this spring?
That's all up based upon how bad you want to be on the field. As we know, receiver is a position you can kind of rotate a bit. You can kind of keep guys fresh and have them in and have them out. So it is a position where the demand is a little bit more calling. It's a little bit more opportunity for a young guy and be able to come in. But that's all based upon if you get in your playbook, if you take the extra time to learn, and if you really want to be on the field.
Cody Raymond says don't forget about Micaiah Tongue as well, and that's exactly right. Tongue, a very interesting prospect coming in from Louisiana. He's going to be a very interesting one to see. Let me get a few more here. Philip Jordan Wells says, wish we could have seen more of Tommy Bush today. Yeah, so Bush is another one of those guys that's kind of battling and fighting for his opportunity right now. Is that a guy that you remember noticing in practice? He's a tall receiver. People remember what Javon Wims did in 2017, and so any of the guys that kind of look like Wims get sort of an extra level of attention from fans. Lander's a little bit like that. Bush is another. Any moments you remember from Tommy Bush, and how would you say his Georgia career is progressing up to this point? So
definitely. So last year, Tommy's first year, he spent the year on the scout team, just making us better, man.
Yeah.
And he was always simulating between him and Matt Landers were always simulating the other team's best player, best receiver. So they had to give us their best, man, and they gave it to us.
Yeah.
There were times where they were unguardable, and you know what I'm saying, and they helped our team. And I'm really excited to see them break out this year. I can't wait.
William Silman in the comment section talking about you getting ready to go towards the NFL draft. So we'll talk about that for a minute. We'll get back to G-Day here before we wrap up and do all of that. But I guess if you don't mind, I am a little curious because you're relaxed today, you're having a good time, but this is a big time, right? We're post pro day and heading towards that draft and heading towards a lot of those evaluations. What's that process been like for you?
Man, it's been amazing. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be up in this process. It's a lot of training. I work out every day. So that's basically my schedule. I try to keep this pretty much the same schedule daily. Work out in the morning, eat, family. So I'm at home in Atlanta and I'm training up in Gwinnett.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, man. I've been getting a few calls and it's looking promising, and I'm just I'm blessed to be in this position and to be able to be a part of the NFL.
Is
draft.
it a different kind of training that than you would do on a day-to-day basis? Just getting ready for a college football season. I mean, for a lot of these guys, I know that 40-yard times and a lot of those shuttle drills and some of the things you would do for a pro day, getting better with those times, better technique in some respects. How much of that is what this has been about, and how much of this is just trying to stay in good shape so that when mini camps roll around, you'll be ready to go out there?
So before pro day, it was more so the let's work on our 40s and let's get explosive and let's do things like that. But now you're training for camp. You're getting ready for camp. So however that may be, where it's lifting and running and staying in shape, just like you said, and is position drills and technique, just paying an extra eye on what you're doing, man. You're basically getting ready for a camp.
And I know this is probably an easy question to answer. This is what Georgia fans want to hear, but it certainly seems like that Georgia would do a pretty good job of getting you guys ready for the NFL. After all, Kirby Smart talks about special teams all the time, and you know this. NFL rookies, that's the best way to make a club. That's the best way to be on the field, is go out there and be a part of a kick coverage unit. And yet, in addition to that, Scott Sinclair, what he does with the weight program, I mean, if any program would be setting its players up to get to that next level, it seems like Georgia's doing a pretty good job of that.
Right, of course. I totally agree. This is probably the closest place. It's probably us and a couple more programs that's the closest to the NFL as it'll get. As far as the play calling, as far as the difficulty of the playbook and things of that such, man, is all NFL ready. We have NFL coaches. Coach Fountain and Coach Tuck was one that came from the NFL, and they kind of coach us like those NFL caliber guys and those NFL guys. So it's really the same program, man. The things we're doing now are the things that we're going to be doing in the league.
That's great to hear. We got more G-Day stuff coming up. We're going to have more from Nate Patrick coming up here too, but you may notice just getting seated and getting going and ready to go here is our buddy the DawgNation recruiting insider Jeff Sintel. And when I mention recruiting, that is a busy day when it comes to G-Day. Jeff also has his eye on everything else happening on the field for the Dogs here today as well. So let me say hello to you, Jeff. Thanks for stopping by and seeing us here at the UGA bookstore for our DawgNation postgame show. We certainly appreciate that. I guess also say hello to Nate Patrick here as well.
Yeah, let me shake this man's hand. Now, let me tell you a quick little story. Brandon's got a little side talent here. He was telling me about this. He says, dude, wait till you see Nate in an interview, on the mic, on the sticks. He's going to be really good. And I heard you earlier this week, and Nate I hope that air stays in that ball a long time for you.
I really appreciate it.
But when it shrinks out, you can talk, son.
I appreciate that.
First thing, you're watching this game. When you look at all these talented players, do you say, I was there, that's what this kid was doing, he was making the same mistakes, or how do you look at the next wave of guys from your perspective?
So it's funny you say that because me and JT went in the locker room at halftime and we kind of heard the coach's game plan, and it seemed like it was deja vu almost. Like it seemed like, man, I could have sworn I heard that same speech.
You didn't break out the same stuff?
The same thing. So it's all a cycle, man. It's all a cycle. Nothing's ever new. Guys make the same mistakes, and it's all about who can stop making that mistake faster. So it is all a cycle.
So inside linebacker, that's your degree, that's your lane. This Nakobe Dean fella, man, he was getting some first team reps in there. He was calling out his hot. He was making it do what it do. How impressed are you with Nakobe already?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of buzz on him, and the thing I heard most about him is he's smart.
Yeah,
he just gets it. And that makes your job way easier if you just get it.
And you covered that, Jeff, with him on the recruiting trail. He's interested in engineering degrees, things like that. That's an example of intelligence right there. And I think you would say, and Nate Trez, you can speak to this too, that level of being able to get it, to use Nate Trez's words, to understand what's being asked from him. Because let's face it, inside linebackers, you got to know a lot of stuff. Ball can be behind you, can be in front of you. You got a lot to keep up with. That intellectual level for Nakobe, that helps a lot in that regard, does it not?
Yeah, and this is a great chance to talk to Nate Trez about this. Nate Trez, I saw him in an all-star game setting, and he was blowing up plays, and he's not supposed to be a coverage guy. I saw him pick off 3 passes in a 7-on-7 scale. And in an all-star game, this is what he was doing. He was confounding the quarterbacks because he was watching hand placement. He was watching white knuckles. He was watching lean. He was watching what the backs and tight ends and tackles do differently on runs versus – and he was already so adept at what he needed to do that he is looking for cheats all over the field. High school players, are they really supposed to be able to do that?
They're and it's amazing that you say that because it's scary how good that guy's going to be because most guys don't get that aspect of the game until about the end of their sophomore year, maybe their junior year, man. But that's what makes the game easier. That's what made the game slow down so much when you know what's coming, when you can see and recognize and see certain things to where you know what's coming. That makes the game way easier. So for him to pick up on that right now, being a freshman guy just coming in, that's amazing, man. He's going to be playing football for a long time.
Let me change the subject just slightly. Alan McGovern in our Facebook comment section says that Brian Herring's elite releasing out of the backfield, catches the ball sweet. And I did think that Herring looked the part of a veteran running back ready to take a additional role this season, Jeff. I thought Herring looked like that guy.
He's the guy that he knows it. He's repped it. He's heard those speeches you talked about before. That playlist has been played a lot of times. And he should be one of the most physical, baddest dudes out there because he came in 2016.
Right.
And he is older and more mature, bigger, faster, stronger than almost everybody that's going to try and tackle him this year.
And Nate Trez, there's also something to be said for when you've been waiting your turn, you get about a whole career's worth of carries in one season.
Oh, definitely.
And you make the most of that at that point in time, right?
Oh, definitely. Every opportunity you get out there, you have to make the most of it.
Yeah. Matt Rukavina also bringing up the name Lewis Seen, and Jeff.
I like him a lot.
Yeah, before our show started, a lot of Georgia fans were mentioning him as well. I know the forum was kind of popping on Seen today as well. He's one of those guys that Kirby, at the end of the week kind of called a big hitter, and you see that nose of the football. You saw that from Lewis a good bit today, did you not?
Yeah, I did. And we always talk about talent, but I want to get Nate Trez's perspective on this is because, listen, Georgia's always had dudes. Does it seem like Georgia reloads and maintains, or does it seem like they're finding even better players with every recruiting class? What does it look like to you? Probably not a drop-off.
Nah, it's never a drop-off. It's never a drop-off, and I think it's a little bit of both. We get the best players, and these guys are being put in the program and groomed, and they are getting better. The type of program Kirby runs, it's hard not to get better. It's hard not to get better. Whether you're on scout team, no matter where you are on the field, it's hard not to get better just because of the intensity and the competition that goes on in practice every day, man. So these guys are just growing up, and next thing you know, you see them, they pop out, they sprout.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Go ahead.
I've got one. This is you and I go back and forth about this, and again, we've got a guest expert here. So last year, Georgia signed 16 guys out of state and only 8 homegrown Georgia boys. Me and him have always went back and forth about sometimes you want that kid who can't show his face around Fairburn or Decatur or DeKalb or South Georgia or Savannah when they lose to a Tech or when they lose to a Florida, because it maybe just means more. How do you feel about Georgia? I mean, there were kids today from Arizona, D.C., 2 from Texas, 1 from Arizona. You know, they're Georgia recruits kids in Nevada now. How do you feel about this program expanding, not to just get the best guys in the state anymore, but the best guys in the country? And do you think the program loses anything by not having kids that grew up as diehard Georgia fans or anything like that?
I mean, at the end of the day, survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. Wherever they come.
You want the best dudes on the team, right?
You want the best. You want the best of the best at all times. But I mean, I believe there's a lot of talent in Georgia, man. Yeah. And at the end of the day, a guy's going to go where he wants to go. And that decision is always on the player, and is always debated between him and his family and whoever the decision depends on. But I don't know, man. But like I say, you go get the best.
Yeah, I like to hear that. Ken Feinberg wants to hear more from Nate Trez on the linebackers. We'll do that before we're done. Justin Sisk on the subject of those recruits. You know, you hear a little bit about, you know, some of the guys who are here today. What can you tell us? Any eyewitness accounts that jump out to you of what you saw, of what's interesting? Any early preview of what may be coming over the next couple of days on that?
So sometimes you don't need, I know the industry is big on crystal balls or whatever. You don't need a crystal ball. If you've seen the look in a kid's face when he's looking at Sanford Stadium, and that's what's that thing, that Jack Nicholson gif that's out where the guy goes like,
right.
You see that look where that guy, it looks like he's about to pop. You saw, you know, Jordan Birch made it, the 5-star tackle from defensive tackle from South Carolina. And I guess everybody always wants to get more big, you know, as an inside linebacker guys. You want guys that can soak up those blocks.
You like folks occupying those blocks in front of you, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, and there's this one. I mean, we're going to have the pictures all up on the site, but I'm going to brag on one of our listeners. I want to brag on one of our DawgNation community.
All right.
Somebody got a picture, and this is going to look to you, Brandon, like Michelangelo's Last Supper or something like that, because there's a picture of the recruits. You got Carson Beck, you got Akiola Ogunbi, you've got Kendall Milton, you've got Paris Johnson, you got Jalen Kimber, you've got. I mean, these are everywhere. I mean, these are the hot boys, the hot list, and they're just right there together. I mean, you know, this is what's crazy about recruiting. Natchez, there's a kid from Houston, Texas. I asked him what his 2 favorite songs are. He said the Pina Colada song. Now, this is a kid from, he's got Nigerian roots, and it's the Pina Colada song, Escape. And maybe you've heard that or not. This isn't no NBA young boy. This isn't no Future. His second song was Hooked on a Feeling. And his high school tape, I asked him, I said, where's the pass blocking? He's like, man, do you not know my high school? We threw the ball 3 times all last year. 4-star, nation's number 12 guard. He's right there on the top list for Georgia at interior line. And Houston, Texas, and somehow Georgia's lure and bringing these guys in, and it is what it is.
I'm not sure, man. With all that money Georgia got, I guess they flying all these jets all across the country.
You got to do what it takes to make it happen.
Right.
But it certainly seems like, though, that, you know, I saw Mikael Sherman's been active on social media already today, talking about his UGA visit. We know that Kendall Milton's been here now for a couple of days. It certainly seems like, even with the weather, this kind of goes as planned for Georgia for the most part today.
You know, we're going to write about this probably, but I think this was a calculated gamble by Coach Smart, because what he did is he broke away. Normally the Masters takes place during G-Day. Yeah. Normally Georgia, these recruits have to say, do I want to go to Alabama? Do I want to go to Auburn? Do I want to go to Clemson? Do I want to go to Florida State? Really, I think it's Oregon and Georgia nationally, the only 2 people that are still having spring games. And wow, they waited, and they got, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better turnout. And again, I want to remind folks, they're going to go, this is just a G-Day, red team, black team, somebody gets steak and lobster, somebody gets beanie weenies. You know that, right?
Can we talk about that just for a second? I mean, is that still a thing?
It is.
Is the steak beanie weenie still a thing?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so how much competition does there really exist for, like who gets to eat the steak and who gets to eat the beanie weenies? Because I remember back in the Richt era, a couple players said they like the beanie weenies better than steak anyway. So, I mean, how big of a thing is
He's rolling his eyes.
I mean, so it's a lot of things that go into it. So it's not just the food, but it's just the bragging rights and things of that nature. And it's guys that's here that says I've never lost a spring game since I've been here.
Oh, is that right?
There's guys that says I've never won a spring game since I've been here. I'm 2-2 in spring games, so I don't really know if I've been on both ends of the spectrum, but I mean, like, they really mean what they say when they say beanies and weenies and 5-star meals. Like, it's tablecloths and it's plates and it's glass plates.
Is
and
that right?
It's T-bones and it's lobsters. And over here, it's plastic.
Too.
It's plastic plates. It's beanies and weenies, plastic cups.
Yeah, that's the winner and loser. They were talking about it today. The winners got the steak and lobster.
What was your overall record then?
I was 2-2.
So you had to eat the plastic cups and the styrofoam plates?
I've started from the bottom and I've seen the top.
Your last G Day, did you eat steak or did you eat beanie weenies?
I ate steak.
That's good.
I ate steak.
All right, that's Nate Patrick. My name's Brandon Adams. That's Jeff Sintel. We're live here at the UGA bookstore for our DawgNation postgame show. Really appreciate you being a part of that. I'll also tell you, we got a few more minutes left before we get out of here. So pop on by and see us if you haven't, or stop on by and see the UGA bookstore. Lots of great apparel down there on the first floor. I'm talking about those major brands, Nike, 47 brand, Peter Millar, Vineyard Vines, Tommy Bahama, Southern Tide. You know, it's all down there. If you want to look good this spring and summer, that's the place to go to get all that and to get ready for the fall there a little bit too. We'll do a couple comments here in a moment. Jeff, as we kind of slowly start the wrap-up process here, any other thoughts kind of kicking around in your head about what you saw today?
Yeah, first of all, you saw these young guys playing a lot. I think if this is Matt Lander's year. You saw him work.
We talked about him a little earlier.
You saw him today, and we spoke to him afterward. And I just think Matt realizes I can make plays, but I've got to keep making plays. I got to get rid of the up and downs. I got to get rid of the question marks and have more periods or exclamation points. I think he's looked himself in the mirror and figured, like, this is his time. I mean, this is his third year at Georgia. He's as big and maybe as physically dominant potentially as anybody here. I tell you what, when you look at Georgia, another big takeaway for me is poor old Stetson Mailman Bennett. He got the number 2 offensive line, and he had Cade Mays.
Yeah.
He had Jamari Salyer. He had Clay Webb. I don't think the South Carolina quarterback is going to have a first offensive line like Stetson Bennett had today.
That's the thing, Nate Trez. You know, I've been watching this program for a long time, and there's a lot of talent at every position. I don't think I've ever seen a position group at Georgia. Now, linebacker's pretty deep right now, too, but the offensive line as deep as it is, that's a real luxury for Georgia to enjoy right now.
Do you know how much of a headache that is in practice for a linebacker?
Yeah.
To have to go ones versus ones, then come down here and be going against the twos or the threes or whoever they is in box drills or and just do that in period 6 and just do a regular drill when it's just you and a scout team lineman and everything, and they're all 6'6",
right,
325 pounds. Like, it's ridiculous, man. And it makes the defense better. It makes when those guys are pushing up against the defensive linemen, and you're not going to see an offensive line like that again.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. Cody Raymond in our Facebook comment section said, how many fans would y'all say were there? He says, I would guess we had 60,000.
Close.
So the official attendance we have here is 52,630. That seems legit to me. There weren't 52,000 people there, but there were enough people there to claim it was 52.
I think there were maybe, if you give 6,000 in the West End recruiting lounge where all those 5-stars were hanging out away from the rain.
About how many would you say was there? 40, 45.
So when I first looked and I say, all right, it's about 45.
Yeah, I feel like if you've got 40, you can call it 52. And I mean, with the way that spring game attendance stuff goes these days.
Well, the other thing is the boxes, and because of the rain, a lot of people were in the club level, and you don't really know how full those are when you look up at the bowl and everything else like that.
I feel like 52 is a fairly legitimate number.
Do you think it's?
Alabama lied. Alabama had like 30 and called it 60. Like, that's making stuff up.
Do you think that was a true number, or was any sort of symmetry?
It better not. You heard about this, right? So Dan Mullen, the Florida coach, is like mocking Georgia with the spring game attendance total about how long it's been since Georgia won a national championship. I mean, you of all people know Mullen's been getting dragged by Georgia for years, and he's the one.
Let's not even talk about that.
Yeah, he put 39 as 39,000 because it's been 39 years since Georgia won a national title, and then it was 476? What was the other? What was the other number?
It's supposed to be the total number of games Georgia's played since it won the national championship, but that technically wasn't even that right.
476, yeah.
By the way,
he has to be worried a lot about Georgia to know those stats.
I like that. Rich Vano says the whole thing seemed a little too relaxed today. I don't know about that, but the one thing I guess I would say as a partial suggestion, if you come to a game during the fall, you got music on third down, you got stuff like that. I feel like there's no music during the game on G-Day. I feel like that would be something I could stand to see a little bit more of.
Well, to me, it's different because he knows in practice these guys are, they're all out, all gas, no brakes because they want to move up. They want to hold their spot. They want to hold off somebody. It was today. You see a lot of business decisions, especially when guys were coming towards the end zone or coming towards the edge on the perimeter. Oh, yeah, but I'm just thinking it was laid back to me a little bit where it didn't seem like guys, especially when guys were working towards the boundary, everybody was letting up when a guy was 4 yards away from the sideline, and nobody wants to hurt the franchise. DeAndre Swift, no doubt about that.
I get all that.
But to me, this is just great. We've got a guy like Natrez here. Natrez, everybody's going to write these stories, especially in our lane, about 3 takeaways, or you're a former player, you're a diehard Bulldog, you're a DGD. What are your immediate takeaways about what you saw on the field? How does the 2019 squad already seem like it's shaping up in your eyes after you saw them out there today?
And that's the amazing thing about football, man. Like, you can be one place one day and a totally different place a month later. Like, you never really know. But as of today, I feel like I feel good knowing in what direction Georgia football is going to. I feel good. I feel confident.
I'll also add to this another thing to go along with what Natrez says. Dre Hinton brings up a good point in our Facebook comment section. To the extent that I'm aware of now, and maybe you know more about it than I do, I didn't hear about any injuries coming out of it today. And
that's a blessing.
That's a big-time blessing right there.
Just the sickness for D-Rob or whatever. And, everybody started wondering about what's up with D-Rob. I talked to J.J. Holloman after the game, and he said, man, he's just sick. Everything's great with D-Rob. He's going to help us. Earlier. He's going to help us and everything else like that. People are already.
I'm sick. I say this, figuratively. I'm sick because I'd love to have seen him today. I mean, I would say that for a lot of the Georgia fans, D-Rob may have been one of the. And Natrez and I talked about this off the top of the show. He may have been one of the players that I was most looking forward to seeing, just because this was going to be the day that we kind of got a chance to see what Kirby's been saying, which is that D-Rob's had a really pretty good spring. Maybe not perfect, but really very good.
Yeah, and in the instance of who's here and who's not here, I don't know. I don't care if you got a heart, what kind of human being you are. If you saw Zamir White today running and you saw him going through pregame polish and going through everything and how big he looks and how it looks like the timetable for him, he's going to be able to cut it loose in August. And you look at him, and the one thing you don't want to say too much, but this is going to be that big back, like much it was with Gurley, where people just didn't want to tackle that monster anymore after the third and fourth quarter. They're like, you know what, I did this for 4 or 5 reps. This is like a Sinclair weight training session right now. We're going to go an extra 20, 30 minutes. He is going to be a load to deal with.
By the way, Philip Jordan Wells may have the comment of the day. He says that Jeff looks like a NASCAR crew chief right now. It's a pretty good call. You do kind of look like
that's the first time I've ever been confused with NASCAR, sir, but that's fine.
I like that. All right, we're going to get ready to wrap things up here. Natrez, thank you so much for being a part of this. It's so much fun, and we can't wait to see you have a very long NFL career, but when you're ready to come back, we'll love to have you back here around DawgNation again very soon, too.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I've never been in front of the camera this long, and I enjoyed myself, man. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, listen, we just sit here and talk forever. We just go on and on and on. Jeff, good stuff from you. Anything else you want to say before we get ready to go?
I just would say that this program, it continues to the point where, remember, Natrez was here for the beginnings of this. Everybody's belly aching about 45,000 or 55,000 at a spring game, like it's some sort of wart or for this Georgia program when they put up 45 or 55 at a spring game, and it just shows the crazy bonkers expectations of this program, but it also shows Easter weekend, some rain, 50 degrees. If you play a game out there, a lot of Georgia people are going to come.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Huge thanks to Connor Riley here in the UGA bookstore for helping us stay on the air. Back in our Atlanta studios, Michael Carvel as well. Don't forget to check out DawgNation.com. A lot more evaluation of everything that happened today for G-Day. Also the forum at forum.DawgNation.com. On a conversation there. And then I will see you Monday morning at 10 a.m. for DawgNation Daily Live. You'll have a great weekend. Happy Easter. And, of course, for those observing Passover as well, to all of you, enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you soon, right back here on the DawgNation video channels, where the final score, let me see if I can give this one more time. The red team has beaten the black team 22-17. So congrats to the red. They enjoy the steak. Black team will settle for the beanie weenies. We'll see you back here very soon around DawgNation. Have a great day, everybody.